For this program, we will need to sort a two-dimensional array. This is going to be a 5x4 array, and it is based on the following. Our entire array should be sorted using bubble sort based on the first column in ascending order and display the entire array. We are then going to reset the array to its original contents, and we're going to do the same thing for the second column, but we're going to use selection sort, and then we're going to repeat that for the third column, but use shell sort. And lastly, we will repeat this for the fifth row, and we are going to use insertion sort for that. After we do all this, we're going to ask the user for a number. We're going to then search the fifth row of our array via insertion sort. We're then going to search for the number in our fifth row of our array that was sorted using insertion sort. So after this one, we're not going to reset it. And then we're going to use binary search to search for this. We will then display the entire column. We are given some examples of what our output should look like down here. So knowing this, we can turn to our code. We have our package main, this is for Eclipse, and then we have our public class driver. We are going to have our public static void main inside of here, and then we are going to have our sorting class. This main is going to run our program, and then we are going to make an instance of it where we will call our class. So our class name is going to just be called sorting. So we'll just call it class sorting. And inside of here, we're going to have all of the different bubble sort, shell sort, selection sort, and insertion sort. Basically everything that we're doing inside of here. Not a lot is going to be inside of our main method. We also have another piece of instruction that says our array. So this two-dimensional array will be declared as a global variable since it is going to be used everywhere. Since it's a global variable before our public static void main, but still inside of our driver class, we are going to make our initial array. So inside of here, since it's global, it's going to be a public. It's not going to change, so a static, and then it's type int. And to make a 2D array, we're going to need two brackets. So we'll need two like this. And we can just put them like this. We're going to need a name for our array, so we'll just call it ARR, short for array. And then we're going to set this equal to. And then normally in an array, we would come in here and we would just input numbers like this. However, in a 2D array, we are going to have this inside of these brackets. And that can be a little bit confusing, and you can write it out all in one line. However, it's quite easier to write it out like this. So when you start with your 2D array, you're going to have your outermost brackets like this. And then with a 2D array, you have a row, and the row is this first one. You have row, and then you have column. So that is how this works. So we have these rows that we're going to make, and then our columns are going to be the actual values inside of each of these brackets. We know it's going to be a 5x4 array, so if we wanted to, we can just control copy that and we can paste it in here. It's going to be a 5x4. So knowing that, we're going to need 5 rows, so we'll make some more of these, and we can move them over just like this. And this is for nothing other than neatness, easier to see. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now we need to have 4 columns. We can fill our array up. We are going to do the values that were given to us right here. So these are like test values. We're not getting any user input for this one, so we're going to have 5, 3, 2, 16, and then we will go down to the next row where we have 9, 8, 10, and 17. And then we'll go down to the next row where we're going to have 4, 7, 11, 18, and then we are going to have 2, 5, 9, and 12. And lastly, we are going to have 7, 9, 4, and 10. And after all of these, we can see that there's a red mark. What we need is a comma. You can think of this as, you see how we have these values in here? Well, you can think of this as one big value, and we have to separate them with commas to have them in our 2D array. But this is how you would do it. So these are our rows, and then looking down, we have our columns. And so that is how we would make a 2D array. We're going to be in our public static void main, and inside of here, remember to do javadoc just for good practice. It's going to be a main method that we can say prints everything, and then our argument is the args. So inside of here, we want to make an instance of our sorting class. So what we need to do is have sorting. We'll just call it sort, and we're going to set this equal to a new sorting. I'm not going to pass anything in, and so we've created a new instance of this. This is underlined in red here, and that is because for some reason I put these parentheses here. When we create a class, as we've seen up here, we don't need parentheses, and it will actually not work if we have parentheses because we can't just pass anything into a class. So this is our fixed class, and this is our main method still. So knowing this, well, we've created an instance of it right here, and we need to have all of these methods written out. But we also need to copy our array. So what we're going to do, because every time we call this, we're going to pass in the array, we're not going to have any output, we're just going to change our array. But then we would have to look at it again, and we would have to look at it from the original array, because that's what the assignment's asking. So what we're going to do first is we're going to display the entire array. So inside of here, we'll have a system.out.println, and we're just going to print initial array like this. And then from here, we're just going to print our array. Well, we can't just call this and print this. We have to print every index. So what we can do is make a loop that goes over all of these indexes. So what we can do from there is make a toString method in this class. We are going to do sort.toString, and then inside of here, we are going to pass in our array. So we're just going to have ARR passed in. We can hover over this, and we're going to create this method down here, and this way is what it is going to look like. So we have created this. We'll get to this in a second, but before we do, we're going to have to create the other things first. So we know that we also need to copy our array once we manipulate it. However, we haven't manipulated it here, so we will just keep going on to the next one, which is bubble sort. So we have this bubble sort here, so we're going to print bubble sort. And in here, well, instead of printing this, we'll just include this with our method. So with the bubble sort, we're going to do sort dot, and then we're going to make our bubble sort class. So we'll just call this bubble sort, and then we're going to pass in our array here. And then we can create this method, and it will create it down here. So that will print the bubble sort. We're going to manipulate it here though. So before we print the bubble sort, we're going to need to copy it. We're going to need to copy it to a temporary 2D array. So we're going to make a new array. We'll do it int, and then we'll just call this temp. So we'll have temp, and we'll set this equal to our array because we haven't manipulated it yet. So we're just going to set this equal to, actually, we can't set this just equal to this, because if we set it equal to here, we're just going to get the address. What we need to do is we need to make a copy method, and this copy method is going to copy all of these values into our temp array. So we're going to have int temp like this, and then we're going to set this equal to sort dot, and then we'll just call this copy, and then we will have our array passed in. So it's going to make a copy of this array. We'll come back to that in a second. So we'll have this toString, and then we have copy. So this is good. And now what we're going to want to do after we've done this, we've manipulated our array, we're going to have to reset our array. And so in resetting our array, what we're going to do is say that, well, ARR has to be equal to our temp now, and that resets it. We're going to do the same thing for the next value. So, or the next search, sorry. We're going to do this for, it says selection sort. So we're doing this for the selection sort. So we can just change this sort type to selection sort. We're not going to recreate temp. We're just going to use temp again. We're setting it equal to sort.copy of ARR. But in fact, we don't even need to do this because the temp is always going to store a copy of our array. And since we're not manipulating it, we don't even need this. So we can take this out. all we're going to do here is we're going to sort with bubble sort, and then we need to reset our array by setting array equal to temp. So we can actually, as a matter of fact, we'll take this, and instead of putting it with print bubble sort, we will put it on its own underneath the create instance of sorting class. So we'll paste this in here, and we'll say, well, this is making a temporary copy of our array. I'm going to indent these just so it's a little bit easier to see. And so now that we've printed our selection sort, we're going to move on to the next one. And the next one is going to be printing the shell sort. So that's C. And in shell sort, we're just going to have to change this, and it'll be shell sort. We can hover over it and click create a method. I want to do these in order, so I'm going to just bring this down here. So knowing this, let's create the next one, which is insertion sort. So we'll copy this, and you can see that it's really the same for all of these. We just need to call the methods. So we're going to change this. Also, I spelled shell wrong, so we're going to have to come and correct this down here. And then we're going to make this insertion sort. We're hovering over this. We're going to click create method. This makes it right here. Let's just move it down right here, and we'll make comments for all of these in the future. So this is how our code will look like. And then after we do this, we're going to want to search the fifth row for user number. And we're going to do that later. So we'll come back to that. But for now, we're just going to look at all of our methods that we need to create. So if we scroll down, we're going to be in the toString part. And for the toString part, all we're doing is we're just printing out our array. So to print out our array,